As you prepare for your job or internship search, there are a few key things you can do to make sure you put your best foot forward. During the short presentation, we will talk about determining your goal, knowing what the employer is seeking, identifying the skills you offer, then tailoring your marketing materials, reviewing job and internship boards, and then finally starting your search. Let's start by talking about your goal. This might be your career goal. This might be getting to grad school. It might be, whatever that next step is for you. But I first want to ask you, what does success look like? And who gets to decide what success looks like? Sometimes I think we have this idea that because I was this major, I have to have this job. And if that's not the way it works out, I'm not successful. But that's not true. You get to decide. And you have to ask yourself, am I happy? Am I applying my skills? Because as a graduate, you have such a robust toolkit of not only technical skills, meaning the skills that are very specific to your major, but of transferable skills that are going to benefit really most in any employer. So, for example, just because you are a psychology major, success does not mean working directly with patients or research, depending on what type of psychology you are looking at. But it's using the skills that you found most interesting and that you built, and you're applying those in a new setting. Just like with accounting, we might think, okay, I'm in accounting, so I need to be an accountant. But there are so many different directions you can take that. So think bigger picture about what you're doing to use those skills and what happiness looks like, while keeping in mind those financial responsibilities that you have as a graduate. And then, does your dream job exist? And I'll tell you, this is $1 million question. And my answer for you is maybe. And it really comes down to asking you, how are you defining your dream job? When do you know that you have it? And it might not be this first job, second job, or even third job, but bigger picture, the path that we are on. And that's where we get into this idea of our calling and our passion, whichever word resonates with you to think about what you're doing and what you were meant to do and the impact that you have. So there's this thought that if we look forward and we look at where we're going, it can be confusing and uncertain. But if we take time to pause and reflect and look backwards and see where we have come from, what we have been maybe consistently given praise on that we do very well, we might see some of those connections and commonalities that say, okay, this is where I'm going and how I'm going to continue using those, all coming to this idea of reimagining your job search and next steps. And going back to that first point of major A does not mean job A, that keep yourself open to what might come next for you. Now let's talk about understanding the job market by discussing different types of hiring. Commonly, you'll see direct hire positions. These are long-term, full-time payroll employee positions working directly for the employer. There's also contract to hire, and this is when a company or an agency intends to fill a permanent position in the future, but prefers to evaluate candidates first. And this is a great opportunity both for the hiring company and for the candidate. There's also contract hiring, where a company decides to hire a temporary worker on a short term contract. And this is where you hear independent contractors working through agencies or even freelance work. And then finally, temporary hire is another common type of hiring. And this is commonly an hourly worker filling a short term need at a company. Another component to the job market is the gig economy, and this is something you might consider. This is based on flexible, temporary, or freelance jobs, often involving connecting with clients or customers through an online platform. The gig economy can benefit workers, businesses, and consumers by making work more adaptable to the needs of the moment and demand for flexible lifestyles. Estimates show as much as one-third of the working population is already in some gig capacity. Some examples of people with this type of work are Uber and Lyft drivers, TaskRabbit workers, and Airbnb landlords. We also need to remember this listing also includes on-call workers, multiple job holders, and highly skilled contractors, just to name a few. So the pros of the gig economy or gig work are that it's flexible, can be done in addition to full-time work, can fill gaps, and really can be done anywhere. The cons would be there is no retirement savings, health insurance, PTO, Social Security, or taxes, so you'd have to plan accordingly. You might also consider working with a recruiter. It's always great to have as many people as possible in your corner helping you find opportunities. And that's just what recruiters do. So they find and hire the best candidate for job openings and opportunities. And there really are two types of recruiters when you're looking out there. Inside recruiters are where companies with numerous positions to fill have an internal recruiter who are solely responsible for hiring, whereas smaller companies have a human resources team that oversees all aspects of that talent management, recruiting, and onboarding. And inside recruiters are typically employees of the company, but sometimes they can be contracted. So let's say that you wanted to work for Target Corporation. There would be somebody employed internally inside Target as an inside recruiter looking for candidates for job openings. External or third-party recruiters are hired by a company to fill a position. A company may decide to use these types of recruiters for a number of reasons. One, there's been an increase in the number of jobs to be filled, or the position is very specific and difficult to fill, or the company wants to keep the opening quiet and so they're having somebody else do their searching. An example of this would be working with a search firm such as Robert Half, where a company would approach Robert Half and say, "We have this position open for an account manager. Can you help us find this talent?" And then Robert Half would go out to their pool of candidates and try to help find the best fit. Either way, working with recruiters should not cost you any money. And if you have any questions, our office is happy to help you understand this process better. Now that we've talked about some of the lingo for the job and internship search, let's start talking about how we know what the employer is seeking. It's always good to start by researching the company, their mission, their values, and trying to get insight on what their culture is. When we go for the interview, when we're in our search, we want to align ourselves to look like the best fit for that organization. And so doing your research is going to help set you apart and show that you are a match. LinkedIn can help with this, glassdoor.com, and even finding somebody that works in those organizations that might be able to give you some insight as well. Another place to start would be with the job description. Oftentimes, they're going to have a description of what the organization is and maybe the specific department, but then it's also going to go into the job description, talking about what you'll be doing and what they're seeking. So, on this example, we can see that this role as a marketing intern will assist with the development and implementation of marketing campaigns, assist with the organization and implementation of activities at home games, execute on-field promotions and fan engagement, organize execution, assist with scheduling special guests, assist with special events, and then goes into some of the detail. We also talk about the desired skills and qualifications of being outgoing, charismatic, personable, think creatively and out of the box, and you can read the rest there. So as you're thinking about this, you might off the bat say, well, I don't have this experience. I've never done on, game day promotions. But what they're really looking for is somebody that has the transferable skill that you could do this in this environment. So you have to ask yourself, have you ever developed something? Have you ever implemented or started something? How do you build relationships with people? Are you outgoing and charismatic? And by inventorying that is what you can then put on your resume to make sure that you're standing out as a fit based on what it is that what they are looking for. In addition to knowing what the employer is seeking off of the job description, there is also this list that NACE puts out every year, and it's the top attributes employers want to see on resumes. NACE is the National Association of Colleges and Employers, and they ask these employers what top skills they want out of their candidates. And usually these skills don't change that much from year to year, but the order in which they're wanting them are what shifts. So looking here, we can see problem solving, working in a team, strong work ethic, analytical, communication, leadership, taking initiative, and so on and so forth. So when you're thinking about setting yourself up as that candidate of choice, how are you integrating these skills into the language of how you are marketing yourself? Here is another list to look at on what employers are seeking. And again, it has to do with knowing who you are so you can best communicate that. Employers can teach the technical skills. So if you don't quite know how to use a system or you don't know their process, that's fine. But it's hard for employers to teach, for example, how to think independently or how to have ambition, which is why these skills here are so important to highlight. So, understanding your career path, knowing what you want, you can point to successes at work and elsewhere, knowing your strengths, thinking independently, solving problems, having ambition, being proactive. You're happy to learn new things, are goal oriented, work well on a team, and also are responsible. So we've talked about all these skills that the employer is seeking, and hopefully it's gotten you thinking about how you have demonstrated and have those skills, because I can guarantee you, you have most of them. It's just taking the time to inventory and identify where they're at work in your life. So if you're not quite sure, there are a few resources for you. Self-assessments such as the MBTI, which is a Myers-Briggs type indicator, and StrengthsFinder can help point out your preferences and top talents and strengths. You can also conduct performance reviews, both formally and informally. So maybe reach out to a coach, classmate, faculty, or boss and just ask them. Tell them that you are doing an assignment or you're taking an inventory to find out what it is that you have to offer. Also think about those more formal annual or, semi-annual reviews that you get and the feedback that you get on assignments as well. There are also transferable skill checklists that you can do, and looking online, doing a simple internet search can help bring you to those to identify that you have problem solving abilities, you do communicate well, you do take initiative and are willing to step up and be flexible and adaptable. Now that we know what the employer is seeking and you know what you have to offer, it's time to tailor your marketing materials. This is your resume, cover letter, and even your LinkedIn profile. In these documents, you want to make sure that you are highlighting yourself as a candidate of choice. Reflect on what you think is important and what interests the employer. And in between there will be the relevant information that needs to be front and center on your resume. So tailor your content so it piques their interest. You also want to use an easy to read format so it's no work for the employer to see why you are a fit. Remember, you are selling yourself and your brand along with all that you have to offer. Once your resume is done and your LinkedIn profile has been updated, it's time to start job or internship searching. Here I'm including a couple job boards and internship boards that you might choose to look at. Keep in mind there are hundreds of these out there. These are just a few common ones that we reference. So first there is Handshake. This is CSP's job and internship board, which is a great starting spot. Employers know to post here to pique the interest of recent college graduates looking for both entry level or experienced opportunities. Also look at your local nonprofit job board. The Minnesota Council of Nonprofits job board is a great place to look for jobs and internships. Indeed.com is a job search aggregator that pulls job postings from multiple sites, so another great resource. Look at your Workforce Center for a job and internship board. LinkedIn has a job and internship board resource. And usajobs.gov will be positions that are located within the government. You can also check to see if your professional association has a job board, and those are going to be more tailored towards your specific field. There are also resources for remote or virtual work job and internship boards, as well as websites for gig, contract, and project-based work and internships. All of these can be found on our website and are hyperlinked so you can quickly access them. Now that you have started your job or internship search, it's important to stay organized. I would recommend creating a job or internship search folder on your computer, and within there, creating folders for each position you've applied to. Within those, include the resume and cover letter that you use to apply, as well as the job description. And don't just include the link. Either do a file save as or convert it to a PDF, because once the company starts interviewing for that, they may take the posting down or inactivate that URL link. So it's important to save the words, the actual job description, in a separate document. This will allow you to reference it if you do get a call for an interview, to know which resume and cover letter you used, and also prepare by looking at the job description. The last thing to note is setting appropriate expectations. I found this quote and thought it was relevant to highlight that expectation is the root of all heartache. So you want to be realistic. Job and internship searches can take time depending on the time of year, the state of the economy, and multiple other factors. So give yourself time and grace. It's not uncommon for a job search to take anywhere from 3 to 6 months. And when it comes to internships, keep in mind that some employers have a routine recruiting system that they start recruiting in the fall for internships that following summer and even into that following fall. So make sure you're doing your research so you're setting yourself up for success from that mental standpoint of setting appropriate expectations. Thank you for tuning in. For additional resources, please reference our website. And with any other questions, feel free to reach out to us at careerdevelopment@csp.edu.